Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is very different than anything that I've done. We're both like, anything that I've done. Today, Bria and I, if you guys don't know, Bria is our COO for Rollettes. Hold for saw. So Bria's been with me since 2015, and we'll get into like how her and I met and stuff, but yeah, so we kind of run Rollettes together. We started out not knowing each other, became friends, and now she basically helps run the entire company and oversees everything. So we did a Q&A on my Instagram, and you guys asked some great questions, and we want to dive in and just open up with you guys on how we make our decisions, what we talk about internally, where we see the vision for Rollettes going, and yeah, all that. So first question is, how did you guys meet?
I feel like some people have heard this story because it's really interesting. Yeah. But so at the time I was working for a real estate developer in Pasadena, and he was moving his company to Santa Barbara, and I just really also kind of needed a change, but I wanted to stay in executive assistant work or a mix of personal and executive assistant work because it was a little bit more flexible and I could audition and pursue a lot of my own things and creative stuff while staying in that skill set that I had really found came naturally to me. In LA, Craigslist is so expansive and has tons of really great opportunities if you know how to kind of weed through, you know, some of the stuff that isn't as legitimate. But I remember, you know, applying for a couple assistant jobs. Nothing was quite exactly what I wanted, but then I saw this ad and I read through it, and it was like, you know, needing some, yes, personal help with personal assisting things, but also
like groceries and like, hey, will you like put the stuff in the washer and dryer? Like that kind of thing. I
was almost kind of looking for something where I used less of my brain, which ultimately turned into, you know, helping run this business, but
it was never the plan though.
Yeah.
That was never the plan.
Yeah, I don't think, you know,
it just
either
naturally
of us really had a plan, but it was funny because it was like, I need, you know, just some help around the house with some running errands, some basic things. I was like, okay, great, I have experience and all that. And then it was like, if you happen to have experience in event planning, that would be amazing. And then if you also happen to have any experience in construction, that would also be great. I just got a house and I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. And then also like it would listed off all of these sort of random disconnected things that I just so happen to have experience in all of them. So I remember just sending my cover letter and resume and photo, and at the bottom of it, I literally have never been so confident ever in a cover letter. I've never said this before, but I was like, blah, 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 and I can start making your life easier right away.
And it's crazy because where the space that I was in, I was at my computer all the time. My mom was like, you need to get an assistant. I'm like, I don't need an assistant. I can do this. And then I hit a point where I'm like, I need help. Like I can't do it all. Like I was living on my own in Los Angeles. So anyways, I posted an ad on Craigslist, and I was like, looking for a personal assistant. This is what I need, blah, blah. I uploaded the ad to Craigslist, and right away within the first hour, I got 80 people that messaged me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I called my mom and I was like, I need to take it down. How do I take it down? I took it down. And then I accidentally, like the next day or maybe later that day, I re-uploaded it, and Bria and like 7 other ones came through, and I was like, oh no! And I closed it out and I deleted it. And then I was like, wait a second, maybe like I'll just look through these 7 too. And I looked through the 7, and Bria sent in her application, and I was like, okay. And like later that week, I set up like 2 days of interviews. I sat at Starbucks 1 full day, interviewed people, sat at Starbucks the next day, interviewed people. Bria was my last interview on the last day. And we just talked for like 2 hours.
It was like 2.5 hours. And I remember really clearly, I didn't know that she was in a chair. Her ad didn't say anything about it because what she needed wasn't anything medical or, and I think you wanted to make that kind of clear. And so you didn't want people to know. So I remember walking up and seeing that you were in a chair, and I had never known anyone in a chair. I'd never known or had experience with anyone in a disability in my life. I always had curiosities, but I never knew anyone. So I just remember so clearly being at the same eye level through the table at Starbucks. You couldn't see the chair. And I remember so clearly at the end when I got up to shake your hand that you didn't stand up. And I remember it being like, it struck me because you have this anticipation that you're both going to stand up and shake hands. And when you didn't, it was like a, really interesting first, like, non-disabled experience where I was like, that's right, she's not going to stand up.
It's so crazy. Yeah. I told her that day, I said, all right, well, you're hired and your first job is to tell everyone they didn't get the job.
Yeah, and I remember exactly where my car was parked. Every time I, like, even passed that parking lot, it's for some... I don't know, it just felt very, like, to me, I always describe it as, like, very divinely organized. Like, it just felt a little bit bigger than me, because I remember getting in my car and I called my mom. She was like, oh, how was it? Because she knew I was really needing a transition and I wasn't really happy, before. And I said, Mom, I don't know why, but I feel like my whole life is about to change. And she was like, really? Aww. And I was like, yeah, I don't know why. Exactly. I couldn't really explain the magnitude. Yeah. But I just knew that my whole world was going to open up in a way that it really hadn't before, which is so crazy. I'll never forget that conversation. I was like, I think my whole life's about to change.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a good one. Someone said, how do you balance the work and friendship business with your friends? I feel like because we started out as not friends, we established a work relationship first, and Bria like made it always very clear that like we like work comes first. Like she came here to work. Very early on, like work always came first. And so for me, I feel like we just naturally we spent so much time together just naturally, because she would be coming into my home, she would see all of my personal documents, hear all my personal conversations, meet my family. Like she just became part of my world just naturally. That like then we just got along, and then now she was one of my maid of honors at my wedding, and like it kind of is crazy. But
I think kind of what you said, like because we weren't friends that then decided to work together as an assistant, I think that can really be an odd, no matter how good two people are or how healthy they are, it can be a weird like power balance, and the person who is assisting can always kind of end up in a position of feeling like, well, they're my friend and they're always telling me what to do. You have to be very, very careful with those boundaries. And I think that just because we didn't know each other, we were able to just always keep that base relationship of, I mean, especially for me, I'm here to do a job, and can imagine how, discretion is the most important thing when you are an assistant or an EA. Like, and so to keep that level of sort of like, it doesn't matter. I'm here to just get the job done and make your life easier. That's just really important. But as time went on, I mean, obviously we have a very intimate friendship, and, know mostly everything about each other's lives. And you're going to hate me when I say this, but, really ultimately, especially when it comes to work, you cannot take anything personally. And, unless someone is truly behaving in some crazy way, but like when things happen, if you are taking things personally as an EA or as someone who's assisting in any way, and they are your friend, like you have to be able to separate it. And at the end of the day, like arriving, and what I think the success was, is that at the end of the day, you were my boss. And I know you hate that, but the truth is like, it just has removed any sort of like, I can separate what is our friendship, and if anything ever needed to be addressed over there, that's different than addressing things at work. And if you mix them up, you start getting in a very interesting territory where you start taking offense for things that, are just business related, and it stops you from communicating openly. So like we joke all the time that in a weird way, it's kind of like a marriage. Like even if it's uncomfortable, even if something comes up, even if, sometimes you got to talk about things that are like, okay, this is a mix of friendship and work and everything. You have to communicate about things always, even if it's uncomfortable. And I think that's what's kind of helped keep the line of, trust and just respect open, because if I feel a way, I'm not hiding anything. If you feel a way, we can talk about it without being like, well, we're friends. Like,
and also too, it's like we have made it very clear that when we are working, we're working, and when we're like, hey, can we take a break real quick? Like, I have a personal thing, or like we've been like, okay, cool. Like, hey, can I have an hour of your time still for work? Like, I've made it very clear, and like especially the past when it was like you were my personal assistant, my executive assistant, and you were like helping run Rollettes. It was like, and you were my friend, and now she's just running Rollettes and Rollettes Experience. Like, she's not my personal assistant. She works with me on like certain things sometimes when she has the time, but she's like not
bigger projects.
Yeah, like bigger projects and stuff. Just because she's just not that role anymore, and I need her brain in a different role. But we've made it very clear, and it's crazy. There'd be a few years where we'd be working all day together, and then we'd be like, let's go to Home Goods.
I know.
Like,
I know.
take off the like work hat, put the friendship hat on. So.
I wouldn't suggest it for everybody.
Yeah,
like,
don't do
we'll
it
wrap
for
this up, but like I wouldn't suggest thinking that just because you're friends that you're gonna have a good working relationship. There's a lot more to it than that, you know. And so it's not a right fit for everybody, but you know, sometimes I think it gets a little challenging, but you just always have to communicate like what box are we in right now, you know.
100%. There's another good question. How do you know when it's time to let someone go business wise, not friendship?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I feel like that's more of a question for you, because there has been times where...
Yeah, I have had to let people go.
Yeah.
And I don't do very well with it, because I will literally like string it along.
I always joke that if I ever need to be fired, I'll have to fire myself.
Yeah.
Because there's no
way I'd be like, Frida, come to the office, you're fired.
I'll have to be like, I think I need to go.
So I had a personal assistant when Bria left me. She decided to leave, and you know, whatever, she left for a year, whole 365 days.
She's not resentful at all.
And she helped try and find me a personal assistant after she left, and like did not work out. But it wasn't your fault. I picked the girl.
Training.
Well, I picked the girl. I wanted to give her an opportunity.
We both wanted to.
But
we like potential.
When you feel as someone who is employing someone, and you feel like you keep having to ask someone to do something over and over and over, and they're just it's not clicking. Obviously, this is like in the personal assistant world. And you have made it clear that this is something that is part of their job, or this is something that you need. Eventually, it should become second nature to them. You shouldn't have to keep reminding them. And if you feel like you're constantly reminding and constantly having to like say, hey, can you still do this? Can you do that? And you're not feeling like things are really getting done, and you're just kind of like going and nothing's getting done. I think it's time to sit down and even just have that conversation with that person and go, hey, how do you feel this is working for you? Is there anything that you would like to change? How can I support you so you feel more comfortable in the work area? Am I communicating correctly? Because maybe it could be something on your end, which was my end, that maybe I wasn't communicating, in the right way that they were understanding. So always having that hard, open communication with like those conversations is really, really important, especially when you are bringing someone into your home, into your personal life, between you and your partner, your friends, everything. It does get hard, and eventually you do have to go like, hey, I think this isn't working out. I really appreciate your time. I would love to like figure out if we can make this work throughout the rest of the week, but here's a 2-week notice kind of thing,
And I want to add that not everyone is made for an assistant life or position. Like, no matter how you grow out of that, because I'm not really in that anymore, in this space, but when people are like, I want to be an assistant, there are some people where I'm like, because it is a different brain space. It requires a different set of skills. And if you're not learning to anticipate needs, and I always say, like, with a new person, and now I've been with you for, we worked together for 7 years, but with a new person, I always say, I need 2 months where I'm told what to do. I'm super over communicated with. I need to get that, what detergent you use multiple times. I remember one time, do you remember the pork sandwich, the ham sandwich? No. One time when I was working for you for a couple of weeks.
Yes.
You told me like one or two times or something that you don't eat pork, and then you were like really hungry. You're like, can you stop at the store and get some sandwiches? And I ended up getting like ham sandwich. And you were like, I actually don't eat pork. And at the time, this was just my own lack of growth on being hard on myself. But I was like, oh my gosh, she told me that. Like, I knew that, and I didn't think when I was grabbing it. That's something you learn for. And let me tell you, I have never purchased a ham pork sandwich for this girl again. And that's, not because I was so wrong. There's obviously higher risk stuff, but it's you learn. And if you're not going, okay, they said this to me last time, and now I'm going to make the adjustment and anticipate this need this time, doesn't mean you have to be perfect, but I mean, not everyone operates like at that, but it's an important thing to adjust and mold to their life. Because if you're doing things your way, it's not ultimately helpful for them, because that then just makes them dependent on you. And the whole point is so that they can be, you know, more independent in every way themselves. So it's not built for everybody.
Funny. This is a good one. When did you realize, wow, this company is growing, I need a team? I think there's a few different times where I was like, oh, wow, I need to grow this team. The start of it was bringing on Bria, realizing that I couldn't do it all. And I think like understanding that you can't do it all will help alleviate, one, pressure, and two, will help you grow. You know, then bringing on Bria, and then I was able to do a little bit more because I had help. Then that got me to the next level of going, okay, well, I really need a manager in the dance space. Like, I would love to find that. And I just talked about it and voiced myself to a lot of people. And then, you know, our manager fell into our lap and was like, hey, I want to work with you. So I think it was a bunch of different times where I realized that I needed to grow the team. And then obviously with Rollettes Experience, like, I would tell Bria and our manager, like, over and over, this is my vision, this is what I want, this is what I want. And they would see it month by month, year by year, kind of like understanding how important it is for this community, that eventually we really needed to actually grow a team behind the scenes and make it actually possible. So
yeah, and like, now that you say that, I remember in my interview when we met, we're chatting for like 2 hours, and I remember saying, okay, what's the big vision? You know, because then we can kind of get a trajectory of what goals to go for, what to look for. And I remember you just so clearly, you were like, I want a ballroom full of women dancing together, and just, I want everyone like finding, you know, community. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And it is just kind of crazy that through many years of hard work and lots of struggle and stuff, it was such a satisfying feeling when I, at Rollettes Experience, can look out at the ballroom, because I'm like, I remember the moment she told me this was the big vision, you know, that this was the dream. So it's kind of cool.
And like that you were there before it all really started.
Yeah, my first Rollettes Experience, there were 12 girls and 3 cars. This was at your apartment. They were all sleeping on air mattresses in her apartment. And I remember coming in the morning, they all wanted bagels and cream cheese and hot Cheetos, which I thought was so disgusting. I was like, what is this diet? Like, because I'm also really starting to like get used to this point of like people with different diagnoses, what they can eat, what they can't eat. I'm like, we can't have pork, but we can have fucking hot Cheetos on some... I was like, the carbo load, like, what is going on? So I have like, you know, bagels and cream cheese and hot Cheetos that I just stopped at the store at. And then I come in the morning, there's air mattresses all over, girls sleeping all over the place, one bathroom, and I'm just like crawling over everyone and, you know, popping
the only
bagels.
able body.
Yeah, like I'm the only non-disabled person for a long time. So then I remember very clearly you guys all lined your cars up out in front of the building, and then you were headed to the dance studio, and I loaded everybody up and then followed you guys because there was no room for me. So I followed you guys to the dance studio and then helped unload everybody. And that was like a week of that. Like, that was my first one.
Threw in real hot.
Yeah. That's so true, yeah.
Let's see. How did you know you two would be good business partners? I think time.
Yeah.
I think time and trust.
I was gonna say trust. I think just like, because understanding that you bring certain things and ideas and stuff to the table, and that like I have certain skills and information and knowledge just in life experience that you didn't have, and just kind of seeing where we needed to fill in the gaps. But also really just I can't speak for you, but like,
it's really trust.
I know more about your life, I think, than you don't know my social security number. So, you know, I know more about, I think, your life, you know, so it's really more so like,
I mean, you had to.
Yeah, and I don't want to give the impression that we always just knew what to do, because like I had a lot of experience in business because of the real estate developer I worked. He threw me into 1031 exchanges and, you know, how to start an LLC and how that worked. But a lot of this stuff, we were just like, Google, like, how do we start up this, that, and the other thing, you know? And it was just figuring it out together and getting letters from the IRS and figuring out, Googling lawyer for blah, blah, blah. And it was just all that.
Yeah, it's really just, it's time. Like, you don't really, it's hard to pick a good business partner, COO, CEO, out of just an application, honestly, especially when it's such a specific niche. And I think it just time told us that like we just do well together.
If there's somebody that's like in your sphere that you're thinking about working with more intimately in a business way, if you say your vision and they're not like, okay, like a yes and person, it doesn't mean that you have to be right. It doesn't, you need people that will push against you in your corner and give you other perspectives. Yeah. But if they're not like, yes, I see that. I get the vision. How do we get there? If they're not that person, then they're not gonna.
Yeah, and I think you'll feel it too.
Yeah, I think so.
This is an interesting one. Does everyone involved in Rollettes make a living wage? So, this is interesting because the Rollettes don't all work for just Rollettes.
Yeah.
They have their own separate things that they do to make a living. But Rollettes does hire, our goal is to hire on people with disabilities and provide a sense of security in that. Being able to hire on people with disabilities is so cool through Rollettes Experience, through Rollettes, through our Boundless Babe Society. We love being able to give people with disabilities an opportunity to make money. But they are not all full-time employees of Rollettes. They don't make a salary or anything like that through Rollettes. It's more so a case-by-case basis. So if we do go and perform, the girls get paid. We did about, I would say 7 years of a bunch of free performances all over to really get out there, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. But once we got to a certain point where the girls were so incredibly busy that it was like, hey, I got to go out and go get a job, or I got to start making money. We had to make a shift within Rollettes of, well, we can't do any more free stuff. It's not that we didn't want to, but our girls are at the point right now where they're in their, mid-20s and they're trying to move out and they're wanting to create a life that if they are giving time to Rollettes, that we do need to compensate them for the performances and for certain gigs. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and also I remember, when you were moving from a more nonprofit status and really pushing energy towards that, you said to me that, like, why can't people with disabilities be paid and seen as a business and treated like you would be hiring anybody else? So a lot of the work and effort that we did to stop doing free performances, it wasn't anything to do with like, we don't want to give this organization our time. It was, we have to start creating a standard that people with disabilities getting paid for what they do, what they can provide, is not just charity work, which has a massive place in this, sphere, which is so important.
We still do things that are free. Like, we have to pick certain things, but we couldn't do it all the time.
We couldn't do it all the time anymore. And so, I mean, as far as, where we are now, like the majority of the team members volunteer their time 100% for Rollettes Experience, and have never, been able to become, they take weeks sometimes off of work for that. The important thing with that is what I'm really happy and proud to say is that actually on our payroll, who we pay consistently to do a job for us consistently, is above minimum wage when you break it down hourly, and we've never asked anyone to work for us for free. And that was something very clear that you made in the beginning, whether it was a concept video and you were hiring dancers or graphic designers, or even if people offer their services because they just want to help, we made it a standard from the very beginning that we would compensate everyone because you wanted to create that standard. So
yeah, I wanted people to take us seriously. I didn't want people to think that I would always be calling them for charity. I'd always be calling for, hey, will you donate your time for this or that? Like, granted,
exposure doesn't pay the bills.
No, exposure does not pay the bills. Like, it really doesn't. And that's like, I'm not some famous person that people are like, oh, I don't care what, I'll work for that person. Like, I wanted people to value us, and I wanted people to feel like when they worked with Rollettes that they were valued. And if that means being compensated at whatever rate we could at least give them, at least something, I always stood by that, because I didn't like people thinking that anytime they associated themselves with Rollettes, they would be doing it for free.
And that's also one of the reasons probably why our relationship and me staying in this position for as long as I have isn't just based on like emotion, because emotion of getting the feel goods and knowing you're doing something great also doesn't pay the bills. So one thing I've always really admired about you from day one that you've always said is you value people's time by compensating them, and I've always felt acknowledged and at least appreciated in that way. You know, so it's never, I
appreciate that.
Yeah, like you from day one, you were, you know, when we were doing that first, you know, concept video on Hollywood Boulevard, you didn't always have the budget. Like it's not always there. It's like, and so, but to be like, you know what, no matter what, you've always taken the hit and not been compensated for this deal or brand deals or collaborations or whatever in order for your people and people that we hire to be paid exactly what they should be and what they're worth, probably sometimes even more, because we want them to know that we value them in that way. We want them to come back. We want,
so because I also feel like I saw the bigger picture. Early on that like, let me take the hit now because I see where this can go if I just keep my people happy and see and make sure that they know that they're valued. I know that one day it will come back to me whenever that is, and maybe it's now, maybe it's later, I don't know, but like I feel like it was all worth it. Like sometimes you have to take those risks, and people are scared of risks. They're scared of change, they're scared of jumping, and I think it's great. I'm like, I thrive off that.
And also, you know, I was thinking about this the other day, is that, you know, the pool of talent that we choose from as far as, you know, picking graphic designers and picking people to work for us isn't just because we're only trying to stay in the disability space. Like I'm happy to say that 100% of the employees that we actually have on payroll are minorities or underrepresented communities. And that feels really good to say that, you know, I've got 5 or 6 women with disabilities who are in chairs on my payroll that we can, you know, and that's a whole nother topic because I get really upset about the way the system works. We do the best we can. I'm really happy to be able to say that. And, you know, but it's because the talent is there.
And a lot of companies won't look at someone with a disability and go, oh, let's compensate them for their time. Even if it's a graphic design or even if it's a speaking engagement or even with Boundless Babe Society, like
brand ambassadors.
Like we want to pay our people because we want them to feel valued and we want them to keep coming back because we see the bigger picture. So what is the hardest part about Rollettes Experience and the attendees? I think it's all the different opinions that we get.
Managing expectations.
Yes. Right? I mean, it's, well, from my side, if you're asking like Bria, it's, you know, the anticipation and the management of all of the finances that come in and go out so quickly. Like, you know, it's a very incubated, independent experience or thing that we put on, minus everything else at Rollettes, because sponsors, you know, tuition, everything, it goes to the event and it just covers the event. And then it goes out and, you know, we have to rely on everything else. It's not a form of income for us. So,
we were actually joking about this earlier. We're like, Rollettes Experience could shut down. It can go away. And it makes me like, we've gotten emails from people that want to complain but then on the flip side of it, we get 10 times more emails that Bria's like, oh my God, this email says that like this person wanted to kill themselves and it saved them. You know, like we get so many more good emails than we do bad, and of course everyone's gonna have an opinion, but it's also managing the personality, the different personalities, and also the expectation. I think that we were talking about earlier is like the expectation that people have on Rollettes Experience and not realizing that it is a small team of people that run it and there is nothing else like it in the world. And so being patient with our growth of Rollettes Experience is, I feel like, really important to us because we're always going to do the best we can. We're always going to, every single decision we make, we talk about it in depth for Rollettes Experience over and over. And
is it the best thing for the growth of the community? And that's
how can we support the community?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I don't think people really understand, which, you know, is okay. We can't make them understand. But like when you are representing something more emotional, connection, part of the community, there's a lot of, you know, I think expectations that people have that come along with that, and I don't think they realize, you know, the certain very few people that maybe don't like the way that we do this or think that this is too positive was one of the feedbacks that I got. I was like, I don't know how to respond to this.
Positive?
Yeah, like just like it's too focuses, you know. And anyway, I don't even know how
why does disability have to have a negative?
Or like, well,
We
honestly,
can talk about real things and still have a positive outlook on it.
And I mean, also, like, we had to be very careful, you know, because the thing is, all this feedback, we take every single person's feedback and we talk about it and we make our decisions based on, and the truth is, we're not going to make everybody happy no matter what we do. Like, and that's what's tough is that I can't get out there and scream to everyone, guys, every decision we ever make goes through the filter of, does this support the community? Does this support women with disabilities? Is this where, you know, does it advance the community? And so if someone's unhappy with how many dance classes we had, or they're unhappy that they didn't make any friends, or they feel like we're too this, that, and the other thing, part of me is like, okay, but I need you to go manage a whole communications with hundreds and hundreds of, like, please go plan an event and then let me know, because I think they think that like maybe their one email is the only one that we get about their one concern, when we take everyone's concerns into consideration, and then we have to decide what's best for the overall event and overall group. Just because you hated the way that this one thing is, someone else freaking loves that, and that's the reason why they come every year. So what do I do with that, you know?
Exactly.
So I think it just, dealing with people also, like, you know, especially with newly diagnosed or progressive diagnosis or new injuries or whatever it is, like, there's a lot of emotion attached to that. And so I think that what's difficult is we're not just, you know, a brand or a company where you can just like go buy a product and not have anything emotional about it. It's very connected to community, connection, you know, finding one another to then advance you into the next stage of love and level in your life. And like, that's gets very emotional for people. So when we have to make just point blank business decisions, a lot of people don't understand why and feel like they need to be in on the inside scoop. When they have to, sometimes we just say, guys, you have to trust that every decision we make goes through, you know, a lot of discussion, and ultimately, does this help the community?
And that's the hardest part, you guys, is like, I say a lot in like Boundless Babe Society, is that when you start something out of passion, it's like wearing your heart on your sleeve. Like for me, when I do get those critical messages, it like partly breaks my heart a little bit, because I'm like, man, I started this because I wanted friends, and I keep it going because I see other people need it. I have my friends. My life is great. Like, I enjoy running Rollettes Experience. I enjoy hosting it. I enjoy the dance classes. I genuinely do. But there's been times where it's literally broken me down so hard, where I'm like second guessing all of it. And then I realized and remember sitting up there on that stage with all of these girls looking back going, oh my gosh, these girls needed it. And those are the moments that bring me back to like, doesn't matter what people say. Hi, I know, different room. And guess what? When Bria and I were recording that whole discussion, we had so many more questions that we wanted to get to. But we obviously went into detail and went into depth, and here we are a half hour later and the camera died. So if you guys like this video and you want to see more kind of intimate conversations and topics that Bria and I go through as COO and CEO of Rollettes and Rollettes Experience, let me know if you guys like this video and we'll make more. But I have so many more questions that came through that we wanted to talk about, so maybe we'll make a few more. But let me know if you guys like this. I hope you guys like grabbed a drink, grabbed some popcorn, and put this on while you're cleaning your room or something, because a lot of topics that we talked about. And yeah, I just like, I've never opened up about how we run Rollettes or Rollettes Experience, and everyone like really wonders, so figured we'd make this. So anyways, I'm gonna finish this video right now, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.